Let's talk about advanced PowerApps file uploads today. So we've already made the video on how to upload a single file, how to upload multiple files. So today what we want to do is we want to talk about things like how to handle if you want to have folders, whether the folder exists or not, how we can set the metadata. So if you want to set a property like the project number, we're going to talk about only being able to upload certain types of files, so we can set that. We'll talk about some file name manipulation and just a bunch of those core questions that we get here at support at PowerApps 911 on how to work with upload files. Sound fun? Then let's just switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, so let's demo what we're about to build. So here we have a folder name. So for example, for our folder names, we're going to type in test/12, right? For the project number, we're going to call that 23. And then we're going to go here and hit play to choose a file. And we're going to choose ourselves because we're not paying attention 401.txt, right? We're going to say open. And as soon as we do that, look at that. You can only upload a PNG or XLS file. You tried to upload a text file. Oops. All right. So we have this one configured to only let us upload certain ones. So we'll click here. And this time we'll grab a picture of Buddy. So we'll say Buddy and Nicola. It spins, it goes, upload complete. We say okay. And if we go check over in SharePoint, look, there's a folder called test12. And then boom, there is Buddy and Nicola. And always when you're doing uploads, always make sure that the file actually shows up. Oh, they're both so cute. And so we know that's all working. Great. Okay. So that is what we're going to build. Now, if you look here, you can see I've got the things we're going to do, right? Dynamic folder names, update metadata, remove spaces from file names, remove slashes from folder names, and then only allow certain file types. Because these are all things that have caused problems or caused us to have support calls. So I'm going to make a video to get rid of our support calls, which makes no sense because we do support for a living. Whatever. It'll be fine. All right. So let's build this thing. So we're going to jump over here to screen 2. I've just thrown an attachment control here, right? And if you don't know how to upload files already, right, you need to know how to do basic uploads. I'm not going to go over the basics. So if you need that, right, click on the video up there and go watch that one first, then come back to this more advanced one, right? This one's going to assume you know how to upload files already. Here we've got our attached file, and we know we also are then going to want what, right? We're going to need a text input. And so for this text input, we're going to put the folder in here, right? So I guess we'll throw a label on top of that, and we'll just set that to be folder. And then we will insert another label, and we'll set that one to be, and we'll do project number again, right? So just do project here, and then another text input, and then we'll get rid of the default for that one. And also keep in mind with this, I would go ahead and then rename these input, right? So we'll rename this one to INP and then FN for folder name. And then we'll rename this one to INP PN for project name. Right? And I always try to rename those like that because I want to be able to easily reference those in a formula in a minute. Okay, so then now we need to build our flow to allow a file upload. So we'll just jump over here to Power Automate. We'll say add a flow, we'll say create a new flow, and we'll say create from blank. Okay, so after a second, we get this. And the first thing we're going to put here, because this is the thing we've already learned how to do, right? We're going to put in a file content option, and we're just going to call it my file. Now what we're going to do is say add an input, text input here, and we're going to call this my folder. And then we're going to add another text input, and we're going to call this one my project. So these are the dynamic inputs, right? These are the V2 versions. So these are different things that we want to pull in from the Power App to get to the flow. So then now we need a new step here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say, hey, I want to create file in SharePoint, right? So create file right there under SharePoint. And I'm going to do that out in my PowerApps video site there. And then for the folder path, now what you want to do here is you're going to choose your document library first, right? So shared documents. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put a / here, and then you're going to put in my folder. Okay. So this is, oh, then the slash goes away. So I get to put it back again. So this is one of those things. Oh my goodness, I'm going to fight it, right? Let's try a third time's a charm. Please keep my slash this time. There we go. Sometimes you have to ask flow nicely. So what this is going to do, this is real cool, is that if we specify a folder that already exists, it will just upload it in that folder. So if we do that test12 again, it'll just go right in there. If we specify a folder that doesn't exist, it will automatically create it, right? I see people all the time jump through hoops to check for folders and create folders. You don't have to do any of that. This will figure all of it out for you. Just put the piece right there. Okay, for the file name now, we're gonna click in here. Now, if you look, we've got my file. Now, if you add my file, if you hover in here, look, it says trigger body file content bytes. That is not what we want. We want the name. Okay, so I'm going to click on this single time, right? Copy. I'm going to close, get rid of that. I'm going to click expression over here and paste that in. Now, go back to the beginning. You're going to delete the @ and the curly brace, and you're going to get rid of the curly brace at the end. And then now here where it says content bytes, what we want to put in is name in all lowercase, okay? Now, if you're using the V2 version of Flow, it would have given you that as an option to choose. Unfortunately, the V1 does not. And when you saw, when I clicked on edit, it sent me the V1 automatically. So you might see a slightly different experience there. If we say okay, so that'll go in there. For the file content, you can just directly use my file because that is that same thing we just copied, file content bytes, which you'll see when you pass from the PowerApps, that's gonna have what we want, okay? So that would create the file. Now we also want to set the project name. So what you're gonna do here is say new step. And now we're going to just search for SharePoint file. And so in here, there is a update file properties, okay? So what this action does is takes an existing file and updates it. So for the site address, you have to choose that same one. So I'm gonna choose PowerApps videos again. For the library name, right, this time it gives us the library. And so we want our shared documents. Now, for whatever weird reason, it calls it documents here, it calls it shared documents in our place. I don't overthink it. It's documents there. And then the ID, this is gonna be the ID of the file we just created. So from the create file action, look, there's the item ID. It says the value that can be used to get or update file properties. That's what we want. So then that tells it what file to update. And then look, there's all the metadata columns. And so for project number, this is where we're going to then scroll through our my project, right? That dynamic content that we created up here earlier, right? My project. So that's all you have to do. So if you want to update 10 metadata columns, then you would ask in PowerApps 10 times, and then you push all those in, right? You can update whatever you want here. You can do different property types. It doesn't matter. So when you go to set metadata, it's really just use this update file properties action and set whatever field you need to see. Set. Ugh, words are hard, right? Whereas the create file, the folders, oh, look at that. It took away my slash again. They're going to really make this difficult to me, aren't they? If you're doing this, because one of the things you might have noticed before, like if you go here and add action and you do SharePoint folder, and so here there is a create new folder action, but I've never had to use it because every time I want to create a folder, it's because I want to put a file in the folder. So I just create the file with the folder in the path and it works itself out, right? But I want you to know that this is here if you need to make one, you weren't uploading a file. I'm feeling pretty good. We're going to call this advanced file upload with PowerApps and we will hit save, right? And once it's done saving there, it jumps us back to PowerApps. PowerApps then loads that in, boom. And so then now what are we going to do? We're going to go here. I'm going to say OnAddFile, right? This is the action that triggers when you upload a file. What do we want here? We want to run that flow. So we'll start typing advanced. There you go, run. And we'll do this. Now look, be careful about your order. A lot of times, right, people are like, well, I did the file as the first input over there, so it should be the first input here. That is almost never how it works. So here it wants my folder first, okay? So what do we do there? We would say input folder.text. Now it wants my project, right? And it says it right there. And so we'd say input, oh, it's not input folder though, it's input FN, right? Input folder was my practice run. Input PN for project is the project. And then for the file, this is where it wants that crazy record and it wants this, right? It wants content bytes. And then we're going to say, I want you to use the first and then self, right? The name of this control dot attachments. And I want you to use the value, right? Because the value is the file. And then for the name, that would be first self.attachments.name. Close our curly, close this. That should load, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to hit play. We're going to say attach a file. We're going to go choose one of the buddy pictures again. Buddy with a brown face. We're going to say, ooh, I don't want to do this yet. Hang on, cancel. I need to set my folder, right? So my folder should be, we'll do test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And project is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I don't think those exist yet. So now we'll say attach file. Now we'll find buddy with a brown face right there and we'll say open. And so it should run and go. And then what we'll do is we'll switch over to our SharePoint. And now what are we looking for? We're looking for test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? A few seconds ago, that's a good sign. We'll click in there, buddy with a brown face. That's a good sign. And then last but not least, we will click on it. Oh, that was like the very first day he came home. So tiny. So that is all working. That was not that hard, right? I feel like people kind of want that to be a lot harder than it needs to be. I tell you, I see all the time, people got complicated flows, checking all these things. It's pretty straightforward. Speaking of straightforward, if you're enjoying this, sign up for my training classes, training.poweraapps911.com, right? We got live classes on PowerApps. We got a Copilot Jumpstart class coming, all types of fun stuff. Hope to see you in a live class soon. That's the core mechanic. Now there's one more mechanic here I forgot to mention I was going to teach you, but we're going to teach you anyway. So the last thing I want to do on the flow side is a lot of times you guys want to return a link to that file, right? So what we're going to do here is right here to advanced file, right? We're going to say edit this thing. And now we successfully know this creates a file. Let's return a link to the file. So what I'm going to do here is add one more step, new step. We're going to search for PowerApps and we want to respond to a Power App or flow. We're going to click on that. And so the same way we added inputs, we add outputs. This time we just need one. So we're going to call this text and we're going to do FL for file link. And here we want to do the dynamic content from the create file action, wherever that is. There you go, create file. And what we're looking for is in here, there should be a link. We're just going to search for the word link. Easy enough. All right. From the update file properties, I lied. There is link to item. Okay. I love this one, right? So the create file returns the path, which is kind of a truncated version. This is the full link, which is a much better use. So in this scenario, it's easier to use, right? And so then now we can say save. And just keep in mind, right, if you weren't updating file properties, then just use path and you just need to put on the front half, right? Like we've talked about that before, but I want to make sure you guys understand, like you don't have to be doing all of this. You could be choosing to do one part or the other, just the folders or just the metadata. It wouldn't be a big deal. Okay. So now we've got that. Now if we X out, now it's going to load again. And now it's loaded. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to here. And so what we want to do, you know what we want to do? We want to do two things. One is we want to say, hey, when you're done, I want you to reset self, right? And so that way it'll get rid of the file that we previously attached. In a minute, we're going to talk about all the mechanics there, but resetting will just make my life easier right now. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to do a set. I'm going to say set var file link. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to run the flow, right? So the same line we had, we're going to go to the end of the flow, like where the flow ended, and we can do a dot at the end here. And there's our FL. So the property we're returning, that will be returned directly. So that file link will just get loaded into the var file link, and then we got to close parentheses around our variable. So if you're just returning one piece of thing from flow, this is the easiest way to do it. If you were returning 5 responses, 10 responses, 2 responses, doesn't matter, and you can't set over and over again, right? What you would do here is you would get rid of the .fl. So then now everything that comes back would be stored in this. So this would now be a record variable instead of a single text variable. So we're going to make it like this. And what you'll see with that, let's hit play. Let's X out of this. Let's attach a file. And let's attach Buddy with his toy. We'll say open. And so when it returns, right, see the dots running, boom, it reset. So now if we throw a label on the screen, what do we got here? Right, you do var fl. Now that's then going to return your value. But if you had, oh wait, it's not var fl, it's var file link, isn't it? Var file link, there you go. So that's our record. And so then now if you do a dot, there's all the properties returned. We only returned one, the FL, so that's all we get. But if you'd done 2, 3, 4, 5 outputs over there, they would all show up here now. So that's how you get to them. But look, that is the complete URL to that. Take this label, right? Maybe we're going to say, hey, label on select, right? Do you know labels can do on select? Launch self.text. And then you know what? Let's just change the color down here under my face to blue. And let's set this puppy to be underlined. Look at that. That looks like a hyperlink. And if you click on it, bingo, bango, there is the world's cutest puppy. You can see that puppy fur, and he's a hot mess, and he's brown because he's dirty, not because that was the color of his fur. Don't judge. Anyway, so you have those abilities. So there you go. That is the hard stuff. Now, problems that we've ran into with this. One was we ran into problems where people said, hey, I only want to be able to upload certain files. So, you know, let's switch over to the stuff that's already written so we can do this, right? So this one only lets us update files of certain types. So what we did was we went here to the OnAddFile, right? OnAddFile property. And so the first thing I wanted to do was I said, hey, use with to create myself an extension, a variable. So it's like a very temporary variable that is the uppercase version of whatever comes after the period. So if you do a buddy.png, it pulls out PNG. If you do, you know, buddy.xlsx, it would pull that out, right? So Eric sent me this whole bit of code right here, but this just does a good job because it just pulls out everything after the period. So then I also said, all right, well, I also want to take that file name. And so one of my customers had a hard time with spaces in their file names. So what we did was look, substitute, take the file name, the regular one, and then anywhere that there's a space, turn it into a underscore. So this is how you can get rid of spaces on the fly, or if you want to get rid of special characters. Right? Another customer had a problem with a bunch of special characters. So we had like 7 substitutes, one to take away hashtags, one to take away parentheses, all of these type of things. You use substitute to clean up those file names. So we store both of those in temporary variables here inside the with, because that way our code's a little cleaner. So I say, hey, if X extension, right, that was this, matches PNG or X extension is JPEG or X extension XLSX. So those are the 3 different files that I allow them to upload with this particular one. That's what I'm doing. I'm saying, hey, if it's true, if any of those are true, then we're going to update context var show loading true. So this is how I taught you last time how to do the whole loading screen, right? So that way they can't click while you're waiting on it to load. So that's what that's facilitating. Then I'm doing that same thing, set var FL, and I have a different flow for this one, video advanced run. And look, for the folder names, if you have slashes in those folder names, it will create subfolders. You don't want folders inside of folders. You just wanted like one name, you just happen to have a slash in there for some weird reason. So we said substitute folder name. If they have any forward slashes in there, just change them to dashes. So we're changing that on the fly. For the project, we didn't have to do anything, so we just did text. And then for the file, right, same thing, content bytes, first self attachments value. And then for the file name, we just used the file name up here, the X file name, because remember, it took out the spaces and changed them to underscores. Grab the my link that flow returns, put it into the var FL. We reset self, so that way the file went away. We updated the variables, so then that way the loading screen went away. Then the comma here says, so that's saying, hey, if this was false, so if they tried to upload a Word document or PDF, then it'd say, notify, you can only upload PNG, we should update this because I changed my logic, JPEG or XLSX files, you tried to upload and then the extension they uploaded. And we did a notification type of error, and then we reset it as well, so that way they have to attach the file again. Okay, so that's how we build, some really cool logic. It's not magic, but just some simple logic in there to, clean up file names, clean up folder names, have those dynamic folder names, and do other fun stuff. Other things that you would probably want to do, thinking about this more now that you've added this, if you didn't want these to be blank, which you wouldn't, right? Because Flow would freak out if they were blank, then you would probably want to either set some type of default value, or just not let these be blank altogether, right? So you could just make it so that, you check to say, hey, if either of those are blank, then, cancel it out, right? We just go back here to the attachment control and we could go say, hey, if the extension equals any of that and not is blank input folder text and not is blank in project text, right? So now what would happen, right? So if they tried to go here and they didn't give me a project number come saying that's required, then we would get an error message as soon as we try to upload a file here. Open, that's running, that doesn't seem right. All right, something went bad there. So let's go back into here. Let's see, let's just change this here. Let's put an extra set of parentheses around this, see if we can't make the logic happier. Let's try it again. Add another one, Baby Chewy. That didn't work either. Let's put all of these in their own parentheses. I don't know why my app is being rude. All right, so any of these are true and both of these are true is what we're after, right? Third time's a charm, maybe, I don't know. Let's try a roller coaster. All right, so parentheses, right? So that makes sense. I just I was going too fast. It's Friday afternoon. I'm tired. It's okay. All right, so all right, what do we have here? So we have parentheses around this because what we want to say is we're saying, hey, if any of these is true, right? So any one of these is true because that's what or means. We get a true. And this is true and this is true, right? So we're saying, hey, you got to get all of these three things. We need 3 trues basically out of all this stuff. And so by putting in the extra parentheses, that would work. And I believe we could get rid of these. I don't think I needed this set. Let's get rid of that set. Let's test it one more time just to make sure that my brain is working correctly. And there you go. So, all right. So there you go. So we just need to put the ors into one giant parenthesis. That's what was confusing it. The open ors was the extra logic, right? And then of course you'd also then want to go fix this, right? So you'd add something into your error message about, project in folder can't be blank. What do you think? Questions, comments, and leave them below, right? Like this is the type of fun stuff that we have, right? These all came from questions that you guys have left on comments, support PowerApps 911, different projects we work on for customers, right? We can help you with your projects and do support for you if you need it too. But that's where all this came from. So I thought this was just a great look at PowerApps advanced file uploads to give you kind of more of the moving pieces that you guys are always asking for. All right? And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.